Welcome to the attic. I'm going to review for you the SmallRig RC120 B, which is this, I was going to say new video light, well, constant light from SmallRig. But SmallRig sent this to me about 8-9 months ago, and I've not reviewed it. So apologies to SmallRig. I said I would review it for them. They've sent it to me. I don't have to send it back, full disclosure, but they don't get to see this review. They don't get to read the review that I'm going to write or anything like that. So you'll get my honest opinion. I was planning on buying something like this anyway, and then life has changed a little bit. So I landed a new job, I've traveled a fair bit, and I caught COVID, which wiped me out for almost 2 months. And basically life has gotten in the way of making any videos. And so I've not been using the light that much, which has been really frustrating. But when I have needed it, it has actually been really useful. And, you know, we're renovating a house still, and my setup is pretty temporary, and there's not a lot of space. That will change in time once this stops being a guest bedroom and actually turns into a proper office. So I don't know if you know too much about SmallRig. They've been around since 2009. They mostly make cages and rigging equipment for videographers, and they then started making lights. I think this was their first one, released early 2022. SmallRig's a really interesting company. So they obviously started out making all of these small bits and pieces, a lot of cages. They'd obviously really gotten the hang of machine tooling and dropped the price down and made stuff really affordable. And they make a load of niche products, and to the point that they now have their Dream Rig program. So basically you join the community, you tell them what you want, and if they think there's demand for the idea and they like the idea, they will work it and develop it with you and eventually bring it to market. So I think someone made a cage for a Sony XLR handle. You need a cage for a handle? Well, yeah, SmallRig has made it. So lighting is a pretty new venture for them. It was a bit of a surprise to see this light, I think, and it's a COB light. If you don't know what that is, it's a chip on board light. So basically LED technology has progressed quite a lot in the last, couple of years, I guess. And they've now changed the way that the LEDs sit together. And I don't know, it's kind of beyond my expertise, but basically it's more compact, it's brighter, and it's cheaper. So you're now starting to see units like this that a while back would have cost a lot of money and made a lot of noise, and now they're a lot better. There's two options for this. So you've got the RC120 B, which is the one that I've received, and the RC120 D. So the D stands for daylight, so that is a fixed color temperature, and B is for bicolor. So you can determine how warm or how cold it is, and you've got a temperature range, I think 2700 to 6500 Kelvin. The D version, if you're not fussed about setting your temperature, that goes for just $219, whereas the bicolor version is $259. So since sending me this light, SmallRig has actually released 3 more of these. They released the RC220, so a 220 watt version last year sometime, and then last month they released 2 more, which is the RC350 and the RC450, so kind of getting more and more powerful as time goes by. This is the cheapest option with the least amount of power. So if you need an affordable light and you don't need to blind anyone, this is actually, in my experience, a pretty solid option. So a few specifications for you. It's 120 watts, which doesn't really tell you a huge amount. I mean, you've got something like 4,450 lux at 1 meter, which again, still isn't very useful. But if you're looking at lighting, you know, a person half length, maybe even full length in quite a small space, well, at quite a short distance, then it's going to be plenty, even with the softbox added. So as soon as you start adding modifiers, obviously you're cutting down on the amount of light that is going to fall on your subject and the more power that you need. But to be honest, from what I've seen from this light so far, it's actually pretty good for my needs, which is mostly videos like this. I'm not using it at the moment, still rigging my my system because I need to hold the light as well. and the odd bit of product photography as well. So it's quite useful just to have a light lying around, and if you just need something pretty casual every now and then, yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good option. A few other specifications: it is a Bowens mount. That means you can add pretty much anything, and also SmallRig make their own line of modifiers now with this specifically in mind. So there's a lantern and there's a softbox and probably other bits and pieces by now. It has stepless dimming, so if you are filming something you need to change the intensity of the light, you're not going to see a dook dook dook, you're just going to see a smooth gradual change, which is pretty useful. The CRI is 95 plus, and some of the tests that I've seen actually rate it at 97. If you don't know what the CRI is, basically it's a measure out of 100 of how accurate, I think it's out of 100, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, out of 100 it tells you how accurate it is at making something look like the color it is supposed to be. And I think basically, if you don't know what this rating is, you don't need to worry about it. And if you do know, you'll know that it's actually quite impressive that something this affordable has that level of accuracy. The physical details, obviously it's got a little bit of weight to it. The plastic, it feels okay. It feels good enough. I mean, it definitely doesn't have a premium feel. So yeah, one of the words you'll hear a lot in this review is affordable. And you can feel that. You can definitely feel that. And you've got this tilt adjustment of 270 degrees, which gives you a fair amount of flexibility. But clamping it, it feels fine. But just keep in mind that unless you're spending more on a light like this, there is a chance that at some point it will give up. And I don't know how many knocks it will take. I've knocked it over once, not from too great a height, fortunately, and it is fine. But how many bumps it will take, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to use the light very intensively and you're going to be carrying it places, it's probably better off spending more money, but you should already know that you get what you pay for when it comes to that sort of thing. There is this really nice carry case for it, and that might be the difference if you're looking at other models which are similar in price. The carry case might actually be the deciding factor, because trying to find something that fits this might be a little tricky. So on the back of the unit, it's very simple. You've got an on-off switch and you've got two dials. And these two dials, one is for the intensity, and you push it once and you control the color temperature. And then the other dial changes the effects that you want. So a lot of these lights have all of these random effects, which I don't think many people will use. Certainly I'm not going to use any of them. So there's paparazzi, there is fireworks, which is, well, I have no idea what that's doing. There is lightning. There's a faulty bulb. So you kind of get the idea. There's very little you're going to use. So having a dial dedicated to all of these effects that I'm never going to use is kind of a bit, I don't know. I just prefer it if there was a dial for intensity and a dial for color temperature. I think that would work for me a lot better. Oh, a bit blind. So in addition to the two dials, there is an app, and for what it's worth, the app apparently doesn't send any data. That's what it says when you download it from the Apple Store. The app, it's not great. It's a bit laggy, and sometimes it just does some weird stuff or comes up with some strange messages. I think a few people said it crashed. It hasn't crashed for me that I remember, not that I've been using it a huge amount. But and you can obviously access all of the effects and change the intensity and change the color temperature. Yeah, it's not great, but it exists if you need an app for your light. So obviously there is a fan on board, because yeah, the COBs are efficient, but of course they still generate a fair amount of heat when the LEDs are that concentrated. And it kicks on and off after, well, it kicks on after about 5 minutes, so you can hear it. Can you hear it? I don't know, but it's worth keeping in mind that there's no way of keeping it on. It's easier to remove a continuous fan from your audio than to remove one that keeps switching on and off. So if that's important to you, yeah, keep that in mind. What else to mention? It comes with a hyper reflector, which will focus the beam if you need a particularly bright subject in one area, and it boosts the intensity of that light as well. And you can attach a V battery. You can buy some sort of plate that you can clip to your light stand and run it off V batteries instead of running it off the mains. And that's about it really. I mean, it's a good light. Seems like a solid choice. The bag is pretty useful. It's kind of one of the differentiators from the competition, and yeah, recommended, I guess. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like, subscribe, usual stuff, and I'll see you next time.